ESPNU and ESPN News. Adam Schefter on this fine program early this week as an ESPN NFL insider, as a senior NFL insider, was asked the question, with T.J. Watt and the Steelers at a contract impasse going into the final year of his contract, could the Steelers think about the unthinkable, trading T.J. Watt? Adam Schefter answered it this way.
They say no. They are adamant that they want him to finish his career in Pittsburgh. And I think that's obviously by far the most likely outcome. And in the end, I guess they figure out a way. But I just want to point out, it's July 1st. They're not closer to a deal. He's not happy. And you haven't paid the guy who's been a fixture in your organization, and he's not happy, and it's July 1st. There's an issue. Do they want to trade him? No. Do I think they'll trade him? No. But are there going to be teams that begin making overtures? Yeah.
An intelligent man known as Chris Canty said, this should have happened, CC, a while ago involving T.J. Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I don't know how many times the Steelers have to take the same approach and get the same result before they do something different. And what I mean by that is this. Treating quarterback as if it's fungible, as if those players are interchangeable, as if it's an afterthought when it comes to finding ways to contend, just seems like delusion in 2025. There is no more important position in all of team sports, let alone football, but all of team sports, than it is the quarterback position. And right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers have the third best quarterback situation in their division at best.
True.
And who's to say that something could happen with the Cleveland Browns quarterback competition where we wouldn't feel better about their situation going into the season than what Pittsburgh is trotting out with Aaron Rodgers? So when we start having a conversation around what the Pittsburgh Steelers need to do moving forward, how they should handle the contract of T.J. Watt, how we evaluate the Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith trade, I think it all centers back to what we think this team is capable of accomplishing with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, knowing that Rodgers hasn't played good football in the better part of the last half decade. So I just don't understand why the Pittsburgh Steelers are making win-now moves where clearly they don't have a quarterback that's capable of being able to do that.
Their MO when it comes to the modus operandi in Pittsburgh has always been about two things, toughness and defense. And T.J. Watt represents that. It can be very, very difficult to put yourself in a situation where, man, if we move on from our heart and soul of this football team, how's that going to resonate in the city of Pittsburgh? A lot of times, CC, and you know this, you played against this organization, you've known this organization from afar and up close and personal, have always been about a guy who's a self-made player. Nobody saw this T.J. Watt coming when he got to the Pittsburgh Steelers, a guy that is on track to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer and maybe the best pass rusher in the National Football League, and he did it with your team. He did it and made him a self-made player, part of your organization, embodying exactly what the organization and city has always been able to manifest itself together as a Steelers team and a Steelers city. It can be very hard, CC, to make that kind of decision. It could be the right decision to move on from T.J. Watt. He gets a big contract from somebody else, and then everybody has to go their separate way. But when he's been in the embodiment of what you've been about as an organization, that's why the Steelers are in that kind of tough spot. Maybe they want to trade him, but they're worried about how that's going to look in that city regarding a guy like him.
Well, they can't trade him now, right? Because if you were considering moving him at any point this offseason, you should have done it before the draft and before free agency, where you have a better chance of being able to mitigate the departure. And, oh, by the way, you can get something that can help you this upcoming season, right? Because when you're talking about trading a player of T.J. Watt's ilk, it's not just going to be a player-for-player transaction. It's likely going to be a player and picks. And so I guess the whole point of what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing is trying to make a push to try to go for it.
Yep.
But I just think that's unrealistic considering where they're at with their quarterback room, right? Usually when you start talking about teams that can contend and get into the playoffs and go on deep playoff runs, they usually have one of the top two quarterbacks in their respective division. Well, that ain't the case for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? There's a reason why this franchise has had 5 straight one-and-dones in the playoffs. There's a reason why they lost 5 straight games in 6 of their last 8 to end the season. Their quarterback room wasn't up to snuff. And by results, by default, it puts a lot of pressure on that defense, which in turn ran out of steam. So I guess the whole formula for the Pittsburgh Steelers is bass backwards in today's NFL, and they're going to have to figure out a way to change that, and it starts by being able to solidify the quarterback position. And I'm sorry, signing up for a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers ain't solidifying the quarterback situation, right? You're only talking about a handful of quarterbacks that have started and won a playoff game in age 40 season or older, right?
Yeah.
So the prospects of Aaron Rodgers being the guy to deliver the Pittsburgh Steelers from their playoff wins drought is just ridiculous. So I don't agree with anything that the Pittsburgh Steelers have done this offseason, and this latest trade for Jalen Ramsey is just the latest installment of that disagreement.
Yeah, I never thought we'd see a Steelers organization that always would take time and have patience making these kind of knee-jerk moves to be that desperate of an organization. But that's what happens when you have not won a playoff game in more than a minute. He's Chris Canty and Freddie Coleman. Thanks for joining us on the Sportsmanlike presented by Progressive Insurance on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and ESPNU. Progressive Commercial Insurance.
Yo, what's going on, Vikings Nation? It's your guy Victor, back again with another Fire episode for the most passionate fan base in the NFL. And today, we're talking about a trade idea so wild, so out of left field, that it literally came up live on ESPN and has the NFL world spinning. I'm talking about a blockbuster hypothetical deal that sends TJ Watt, yeah, that TJ Watt, to the Minnesota Vikings in exchange for rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy. Now, before you freak out and start throwing stuff across the room, take a deep breath, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's walk through this madness together, because I've got thoughts. Let's go. So here's the background. This idea came from Chris Canty, former NFLer and current analyst on ESPN's Unsportsmanlike. During the show, he just kind of spitballed the idea. Unless you're going to trade TJ Watt to the Vikings for JJ McCarthy. I like that trade now that I think about it. And you know what? That one line blew up. Now let's be very clear. This is not a report. Nobody's picking up the phone. No insiders are saying this is in the works. But still, it got me thinking, would this kind of deal ever make sense? For either side? Let's talk it out like real fans. Alright, let's look at this from the Vikings perspective. We just drafted JJ McCarthy 10th overall. Kevin O'Connell handpicked this dude. He's smart, he's athletic, he's a proven winner at Michigan. Sure, he hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet, but the potential, off the charts. Trading him before he even suits up in purple and gold, that would be unprecedented. But here's where the idea almost makes sense. TJ Watt is a generational talent. He's 29 years old, already has a Defensive Player of the Year award, 96.5 career sacks, and last year alone he racked up 19 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and led a defense that dragged the Steelers to 10 wins despite awful QB play. You drop TJ Watt into Brian Flores' system, opposite Danielle Hunter's replacement, oof. That front seven becomes instantly elite, but then the reality hits. You've got no quarterback. Sam Darnold is not it. Nick Mullins is a clipboard. And without a QB in today's league, you're done. Now let's flip it. Would the Steelers seriously give up TJ Watt for a rookie QB? Look, Pittsburgh's been desperate for stability under center since Big Ben retired. Kenny Pickett? Bust. Mitch Trubisky? Yikes. Mason Rudolph? Come on. JJ McCarthy would be a breath of fresh air for that fan base. Young, coachable, mobile. He could grow into something special. But is that worth giving up the literal face of their defense? The guy who's been the heart and soul of that team for nearly a decade. Let's not forget, the Steelers were 6th in points allowed last year. TJ Watt is everything to that system. Take him away and that team loses its identity. Let's bring in some actual numbers to give this context. TJ Watt, 2023. 19.0 sacks, led NFL. 36 QB hits, 4 forced fumbles, 1 interception Pro Football Focus grade, 91.7 JJ McCarthy, Michigan 2023, 2,991 yards, 22 TDs, 4 INTs, 72.3% completion, 27-1 record as starter. JJ is a winner, but we don't know yet how he'll translate to the league. That's the gamble. What? You know what you're getting. Elite, dominant, disruptive, and a leader in the locker room. So this trade, it's basically gambling the future for the now, or vice versa depending on the team. Here's what this whole conversation actually tells me. People outside of Minnesota don't believe in JJ McCarthy, period. To even float this trade says folks don't think he's untouchable. But here's the thing, we, the Vikings fans, need to believe. If O'Connell and Kwesi went all in on this kid, then he deserves our patience and our support. Would I love to have TJ Watt in purple? Absolutely. Would I trade our rookie QB for him before we even see what McCarthy's got? No shot. So here's my take. Vikings Nation, love the idea, hate the timing. TJ Watt is a freak, no doubt, but JJ McCarthy represents something even more valuable. Hope, the chance to build something from the ground up, something sustainable, something special. We've been on the QB carousel for way too long. Now that we might have our guy, we can't panic just because an all-pro defender becomes hypothetically available. But that's just what I think. Now I want to hear from you. Would you trade JJ McCarthy for TJ Watt? Sound off in the comments, let's debate. And hey, if you're new here, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss a single episode as we head into training camp. I've got a feeling this season's gonna be crazy, and I'll be with you for every step of the ride. Skol Vikings, I'm Victor, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.